everyone, so today I thought I would do a university update, basically just chatting about how I'm finding third year and my modules and things, because I thought it might be interesting to any of you that are in second year and you're thinking about what third year is going to be like, or some of you might just be curious. So if you've not watched any of my videos before, I go to the University of Exeter. I'm currently halfway through my third year studying psychology. I can't believe it's almost over. It's scary to think about, but yeah, the way modules have worked this year is we've actually had some choice in what we take. So for the most part in the past 2 years we haven't really had much control over what we learn. The way they do it at Exeter is they put all of your choice pretty much into third year. So this year I had 3 option modules and 2 compulsory modules. So the way they're split is in term 1 I do 2 option modules and a compulsory module, and term 2 I do 1 option module and 1 compulsory module, because the expectation is in term 2 you're more likely to be doing research project stuff. So that is the other big thing in third year, is a research project, which is the equivalent of a dissertation but it involves research as well. And then term 3 is just exams, so I don't have any modules or lectures or anything in term 3. So the compulsory module that was in term 1 was statistics and methods. I've had to do statistics and methods pretty much the whole 3 years, can't get rid of it. Stats is a nightmare, but it's one of those subjects that once you get the hang of, it's fine. So I seem to get the hang of it for the exam and then lose it for the next year, and then I have to learn it again, and then fine in the exam, and then I have to learn it again. So that's pretty much the same as what it was this year. I only had 5 lectures for stats and they were only an hour each, so it wasn't that much content, and I found it okay for the most part. I mean, revising was a bit stressful because I did leave it all to the last minute. If you've seen my study with me, that's what I was revising in that. So assessment wise for stats, we have 1 exam and that is it. So the stats and methods module is 1 module, so 50% is from stats, 50% is from methods. Both halves are just an exam. So I also had a methods exam in January. They were the only 2 January exams I had. So that was quite different from previous years, because for first year and second year I had all of the modules I'd done that term in term 1 I had the exams for in January, and then all of the modules I did in term 2 I had the exams for in May. This year is a bit different because my 3 option modules all have exams and they're in May, and then the January exams I had were the stats exam and the methods exam. So I've talked a little bit about the stats exam. That was pretty much the same as it was last year. It was on a computer, it was long, but it was fine. I haven't got my results back from these exams yet, but I think the stats exam went fairly okay. And then the methods exam was completely different to any exam I've ever done. The way they did it is half of term 1 we learnt stats and half we did methods. So like I said, we have 5 lectures for stats, and then the methods section were sort of practical sessions where we were in small groups and we had to come up with a sort of a mini research project that we weren't going to carry out, but we had to plan. So, you know, we had to come up with the hypotheses and how we'd analyse the results and what we were expecting to find and all that sort of stuff. So we basically spent about 5 weeks doing that as a group and just coming up with an idea. So it meant across our year pretty much everyone had a different research project, which would be quite hard to examine on. So the way the exam worked, it was 2 hours, we had 10 questions, and they were just things like, you know, what was your IV, what were your predictions, that sort of thing. So I don't have any idea how I did in that exam, to be honest. I didn't think the exam itself was awful, but it just depends on how your research project that you came up with as a group was, and I don't know how good ours was, so I literally have no idea. So that wasn't my favourite module, only because it was different and I'm not used to that sort of set out and way of doing things, but it wasn't bad, it was fairly easy. Fingers crossed I did okay in the exam, but like I said, I just can't tell whatsoever. And then my 2 option modules for term 1 were processes of human memory and stereotypes and stereotyping. So when we actually chose our modules in the summer, they were kind of set out into blocks and you had to rate each block which order of things you'd want. So processes of human memory was my top one that I rated in that block. I didn't really like the look of any of the others, so I was really happy I got that one. I didn't know anyone in that module though, so I went in like completely friendless, and it was okay. It really wasn't that bad. I was dreading it at first because this year they've introduced seminars, so that is something else that's new. I feel like I'm a bit all over the place for this video, so I apologise, I'm just kind of chatting. So we had seminars for the first time, which I was really worried about because I thought they were going to be quite chatty and I'd have to interact with people, and that's just not my thing. That just makes me feel really uncomfortable. I much prefer just being kind of talked at and then writing down my own notes and being in charge of my own sort of stuff. So I wasn't excited for the idea of discussions or anything like that. But this module, the memory module, was fine. The lecturer was really lovely. It didn't involve very much discussion, thank goodness, and I found it interesting, so I was happy with that module. Assessment wise, with this module, it was 60% exam and 40% coursework. So like I said, the exam is in May, so I've not had that yet, but the coursework was okay. I was very disappointed. I got 62 in it, which isn't bad at all, but I was hoping for higher, and that was sort of like, that was the lowest grade I'd got on coursework so far at university, so it was quite like discouraging for my first coursework of third year to be my lowest mark so far. I think it was because it was quite a technical essay and it was quite like biological, which just isn't my thing, has not ever been my thing, so that was the only slightly disappointing part. But I'm hoping that the exam I'll be able to like boost up my grade a little bit. And then my final module for term 1 was the stereotypes module, and that was set out in a similar sort of way in which it wasn't very interactive. I think my lecturer wanted it to be more interactive, but our class just wasn't very chatty, and that was absolutely fine by me. I absolutely loved my lecturer for stereotypes. She's amazing. I think I love the way she teaches. I think she's very clear, but she's also just quite cool. So I really liked her, and I was very happy with that module, even though that wasn't the top of my list when I was picking modules, and I just kind of got it anyway and I just dealt with it. I was happy I ended up with it in the end. Also, assessment wise for this module was a little bit different, which was the reason I hadn't put it as my top module choice for that block, because this one included a presentation that was marked. So all 3 of my option modules that I'm doing have involved some sort of presenting. So with the memory one, I had to do a like quick 1-minute presentation with a group, which wasn't marked, it was formative, so it was okay. I mean, I hated it, but it was okay. But the one for stereotypes was marked, and it was 10% of our grade, so it was 10% presentation, 40% coursework, and then 50% exam. So I had to do a 10-minute presentation. It was me and a friend. I did know someone in this module. One of my housemates that does psychology also was in this module, which made it a lot nicer to go to because you have a friend already, you have someone to talk to. So we did a presentation together, and that went fine. I got 68, which I was absolutely chuffed with, but public speaking is just not something I enjoy. It made me feel so nervous and awful, and I hate it. It's just not my thing. So I'm glad that that's over, to be honest. It was quite traumatizing, but I'm very happy with what I got for it. And the essay for that module, I got 72, which I'm also very happy with. So all in all, that module was a good module, and it's really interesting. I much prefer social psychology to sort of biological stuff or cognitive stuff, so that was more my thing. So now moving on to term 2, which is what I'm currently in. This term, the compulsory module is called Contemporary Issues, and if anyone else has to do contemporary issues, let me know in a comment, because I hate it. It's just not my thing. It's interesting because we get given guest lecturers. We have 8 guest lecturers that they do a lecture on what they're studying and their research, and we have to then pick 4 of those lectures to write a piece of coursework on. So this module doesn't have an exam, it's all coursework based, and there's 4 pieces, which are 2 press releases and 2 thought papers. So this is very different to anything we've done before. We've never had to write a press release or a thought paper. So it's kind of like, it just annoys me that they throw in these random stuff in third year where you've just kind of got in the routine of how to write, you know, an essay, how to write a practical report, and now all of a sudden we're having to write press releases and thought papers. I'm okay with the press release, I can get my head around that. It's just the thought paper I'm not excited about. It's all about critical thinking, which I know you're in third year, you should be able to think critically, but it's just not something I'm good at, nor do I enjoy. So I haven't had to write those yet. The first one of those is in February the 12th, I think. So I've not thought about them yet, haven't done them, don't know how I'll find them, don't know how I'll do on them. I'll probably do another university video at the end of the year talking about my whole third year experience, so I'll probably mention them then, but for now I'm just not excited about them. And then my option module this term is Cognitive Behavioural Therapy for Children with Mental Health Disorders. It's a very long title. I picked it because it sounded interesting, but I don't know anyone on the course or anything like that, and so far I found the module quite strange. It's not my favourite thing. So it's a clinical module, which means most of the students in my seminar are clinical students. So at Exeter you can do straight psychology or you could do like clinical applied, and I think most of the people in my seminar are clinical, which means it's quite tricky because they already know a lot of the stuff that's being mentioned, and my lecturer kind of just like says stuff in passing that he expects people to know, when I don't know because I haven't done clinical before, so I'm finding that quite tricky. The seminar is also 3 hours long, which kills me. So for all 3 of the option modules, we have 3 hours worth of seminars, but for both of the ones in term 1, that was split up into a 2-hour seminar and then a 1-hour seminar each week. This one is all at once, it's 3 hours. It kills me. It is just awful. I just can't concentrate for that long in a classroom. So that is definitely not something I'm enjoying about the module. It's also a very different style to anything I'm used to, which again I'm not really enjoying just because it's like an adjustment. So the lecturer is a clinical teacher and he's great, he's so lovely, he's very enthusiastic, he's hilarious. But it just means the environment in the room is very different to anything I've had in my other modules. Everyone's very chatty and it's very, you know, debating and having lots of discussions, which is great for some people, they work great in that environment, but it's just not a good environment for me. It makes me feel quite anxious when people are chatting all the time and, you know, asking questions, and I find it quite frustrating when the same person is putting their hand up constantly to say something and make a point. I made a tally the other day in one of my seminars and the same guy put his hand up 23 times in one seminar to talk, which is just like, it's a bit much, and I just find the whole seminar a bit much sometimes. It's just very different. The lecturer has a definite different style of teaching. He does lots of quizzes, but not relevant to the subject. He does quizzes on like celebrities, and he has buzzers that make animal sounds, and he makes us go outside and play with the ball, and it's just like that sort of stuff, which is just not very me. And I know it would work great for some people, but it's not my cup of tea. The subject itself is really interesting and I'm enjoying learning stuff. I'm just struggling with the way it's being taught, but I'm sure that's something I'll get used to. I'm only currently 3 weeks in, so hopefully as the module goes on I'll start enjoying it a bit more as I get like more comfortable. Also, I don't know anyone at the moment, so that's also not that great, and I'm sure that's adding to me not enjoying the module so much. So that pretty much covers all of my modules this term. Like I mentioned, I've got 3 exams in May, which are for my 3 option modules. So the way the exams are set out this year is that they're 3 hours, which again is absolutely going to kill me. How anyone can write for 3 hours, I don't know, and also I'm going to be so hungry, so not excited about that at all. But they're 3 hours and we have to do 2 essays. Also, they've introduced something that I think is new this year, which is that we get a scene question for 2 of the exams out of 3 of them. So we have to do 2 essays, one of which can be seen and then the other question we won't know, but we get to choose between 4 questions. I feel like this isn't making any sense, but basically for each exam paper we get given 4 questions to choose from. One of them we've seen before, the other 3 we've not seen. We write 2 essays and then that's it in 3 hours. But for some reason my memory module I don't get a scene question, so that's just 4 questions I get given unseen and I pick 2 of them to answer. So yeah, I'm not very excited about that. Essay exams have not ever been my thing, so not excited, but hopefully by the time May rolls around I'll be feeling it a bit more. It's also the first time I've done May exams on modules I did in term 1. So I think that's going to be quite tricky because obviously it's all fresh in my mind in January when I would normally do the exam, and by the time it gets to May it's been, what, about 4 months since I've even looked at the subject. So that's quite different, and I think I'm going to struggle looking back and trying to learn everything. And then in terms of the other big part of 3rd year, which is the research project, so far I'm finding it okay. So I think the research project for us is 45 credits and each module is 15 credits. So this research project is the equivalent of my scores from 3 modules. So it's quite a big deal. The project itself is a 6,000 word report on a piece of research that we're carrying out in small groups. So I'm in a group with 2 other girls and we've got a tutor who kind of monitors it all. My tutor is great, she's so lovely, she's really, really nice. I had her as a lecturer in 1st year and she's just really nice. I'm really happy with her. My actual subject of my research project I'm not so happy about. We didn't really get much control over what we were doing for our research project. I think in May time we were given a list of about 30 different kind of areas of research and we had to pick our top 6. I was told I was given my first choice, which was social influences on health and well-being, but then it turns out when I got to my meeting I was in a completely different group and they'd lied and I hadn't got my first choice. I think I got my last choice, which was digital technology or something like that. But you don't really have any control, so you just kind of have to go with it. But that does mean that I don't find what I'm doing my project on particularly interesting. We're doing ours on implicit emotion, and sort of the broader picture is that our research will help human robot research, which is interesting. That sounds interesting, but the actual little bit that I'm doing isn't that fun. But work-wise for the research project, it's going okay. We're a little bit behind. We probably should be getting like results by now, and we've not even sent ours off to ethics yet. So the way it works is you kind of design your research, then you have to send it off to get it checked by the ethics committee just so that it's all fine, and then you can start collecting your data, and then you have to analyse it and write the report. So at the moment we're at the stage where we're sending it off to ethics, and then we can start collecting data. So other than not really finding my topic very interesting, which I guess is quite a big part, but other than that, the research project is going fine. The workload for that is fine. We just have weekly meetings where we sort stuff out. So that's all going okay so far. And I did have to write a proposal for that, which I think was about 1,500 words long. And that was due in, I think, November time, beginning of November, end of October. And that was all fine. So I can actually use that proposal in my research project, which is great. And that pretty much covers everything I've been doing this year. In terms of workload and things like that for third year, it's very different to second and first year. I don't have very many contact hours, so a lot of it has to be independently done, which I struggle with sometimes. I struggle to stay on top of my own work and like making sure I'm motivated and productive. So I would almost prefer having more contact hours, I think, and less independent study. But that's just the way it works out. But I'm finding it okay so far. I don't think it's like a massive jump from second to third year or anything like that. I don't think the content or the essays are any more challenging. I don't know about the exams. I think that probably will be quite difficult just because I'm not an essay exam person, but if you are, then that's great. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything, I think. If you've got any questions about what I'm doing, or psychology or third year or university or anything like that, let me know in the comments and I'm very happy to answer them. I understand that this video was very all over the place and I've basically just kind of word vomited everything. So I hope it makes somewhat sense and I hope it was interesting to anyone that cares. Let me know any other video requests you want to see from me and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!